Welcome to my Asshole Podcast. Let's get into it. All right, today is Thursday's episode, and it is the last episode for A Court of Thorns and Roses. Today's going to be a bit of a short episode, shorter than normal anyway. Usually these episodes run about an hour and a half because of the book, but today we only have two short chapters. They're probably going to be like 30 minutes, for both chapters. So we'll have our thread still. But today is the last day for A Court of Thorns and Roses. And then next week, we will be starting Book 2 for Haunting Adeline, as per requested by you guys, the viewers. Especially all you little spicy girlies out there. My God. The amount of women in my comment section talking about, are you going to do Haunting Adeline Book 2? You dirty little girlies. Oh, my goodness. But it's fine because I'm here for it. All right? And I'm ready for it. Because I think we enjoyed Book 1 so much. A lot of those episodes are probably my most watched episodes. You guys have been loving that. So, as per requested by you guys, we are going to do that. We're going to get into Book 2. But today is obviously the last day for A Court of Thorns and Roses. We may revisit and read some of the other books in the series as well later on, down the road. Just because I do want to see how Feyre's story continues and goes on and so on and so forth. So we'll definitely keep the A Court, series around, you know what I mean? But without further ado, though, let's hop into the thread so that we can hop into our book and we'll get out of here. Okay, today's thread is, guys, what's the hardest thing to explain to women? All right? What's hard to explain to women? That just because I'm quiet in your presence doesn't mean I'm upset. Just means I'm either tired, don't have anything to say, or I'm thinking about something, or I'm thinking about nothing. Facts. Because sometimes dudes are able to just turn their brain off and just be like, dude. And we're just not thinking about shit. Or we're thinking about something so insignificant. We're thinking about something so insignificant to where we can just turn our brain off and it is what it is. And that's why a lot of guys love playing video games, just because it's a way to kind of just turn our brain off and just, focus on something else. But if we're just sitting and chilling, leave us alone. Don't ask what's wrong and are you all right and all. Nah, just chill. Or if you do ask and we're just like, oh, nothing. It's truly nothing. You know what I mean? Cuddle up next to us. Hang out a little bit. Fellate, the wiener, if that's what you're down for. You know what I mean? Like, chill, ladies. All right, guys, what's the hardest thing to explain to women? That sometimes we need personal space and it has nothing to do with our opinion of you. Yeah, a lot of girls be getting in their head about that when they're just like, yo, I just want to be chilling by myself, or I just want to go, chill with my best friend or whatever. And they're just like, they don't want to hang out with me. Oh my God, is he cheating on me? Is there someone else? And it's like, no, we just want to fucking be alone. So we don't, because you got to understand, for guys in a relationship, we always have to entertain you. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, that's in a way our job, as the boyfriend. We have to be entertaining you. We have to take you out to do fun things. We have to set things up for you, whether it's, watching a movie and cuddling at home and having snacks, or it's going out and planning a bit of a dinner and we're going to go here and we're going to do this and that. Like, as a guy, we are constantly responsible for making sure that you are happy and have a good time. Now, when we're able to be by ourselves, we don't have to worry about if you're having a good time or you're happy. You know what I mean? We could just kind of be like, and worry about ourselves for a minute. You know what I mean? And for a guy, shit. You throw that motherfucker in front of a TV, a video game, or, his favorite little hobby. My man's is good for hours. My man will forget to eat after a while. He'll just be like, oh, shit. It's been 6 hours. I haven't eaten a damn thing. That's just the way guys are. And so it's nice when we get to kind of just be by ourselves and not really have to worry about you or, your feelings, or if you're having a good time or if you're all right, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's a nice just break from that. And I know it's kind of sounds harsh. Why would you want to break from me? Why would you want to not worry about my happiness for a while? But it's like, hey, we do so much in the relationship that you guys don't realize that we do. Why? Because a lot of guys, especially if your guy, is that type of dude who plans everything, he has everything down to the T, he's doing his thing. There's a lot that he does that you don't see, to make all of that happen. And it's exhausting and it's a lot. My man's is out here making phone calls. He's planning. He's Googling. He's Google mapping to make sure, he takes the fastest route, because we know girls don't like to be in the car for that long, and girls don't like to wait in lines. And you know what I mean? You chicks get bored so fucking quick nowadays. It's crazy. So we have to take in account so many things. And then there's little personal things that he has to worry about. You know what I mean? If it makes you feel uncomfortable, what the weather's going to be like, does he have to bring an extra jacket? Does he have to do this? Does he have to, there's so much we have to think about that you ladies don't even think that we think about, but we do. And we have to, because if we don't, well, guess what? That's probably why that guy's in the friend zone and not in the boyfriend zone. Let's be honest here. Let's keep it undopey. All right. Guys, what's the hardest thing to explain to women? I like to be touched too. Put your arms around me. Play with my hands. Rub your hands on my body. Don't just sit there and get rubbed like some regal cat. Facts. Women don't really understand how influential their touch is to a guy. You know what I mean? And I'll give you a good example. There was a time I went out with this girl that I liked, and it was me, her, and her brother, and we were actually meeting up with some of her friends and stuff like that. And she was kind of introducing me, to her brother and stuff like that. And I got to talk to him for a little bit, and it was as small as she was just like, "This is Aaron," and she put her hand on my chest, and for me, I was just like, I was just like, oh baby, and it was just as small as her putting her little dainty hand on my chest. For me, loved it. I was like, we're getting married. We're going to have 4 kids, and I'm already picking out our flowers for the wedding. No, I'm just saying. It's you have to understand, for a dude, especially if it's from the girl that he likes, touch is everything. You know what I mean? Touch is absolutely everything. And, I remember there was one time, in that same night, you know what I mean? She had put her arm, kind of wrapped around my arm. Again, dude, I was just like, we're getting married. You know what I mean? I'll go buy a ring right now. I'm just saying, for a lot of guys, especially when you know that they like you, just that touch, it really, it adds that icing on the cake, man. I'm just saying. All right, guys, what's the hardest thing to explain to women? On a rare occasion where we fail to get hard during sex, it doesn't mean we're not into you or turned on by you. Sometimes we just have a lot going on in our head and feel stressed. Facts. Especially if it's the first time you are about to have sex with this guy. And this is maybe happened to me once. But then, I was able to perform after that. But it was one of those things where when a guy meets a girl and he's very attracted to her, and, he's really putting in the effort, and you're feeling that effort, and you're like, yo, this is great, and blah, blah, blah. When the guy almost kind of knows when you're ready to then smash, because now he's like, holy shit. And he's thinking to himself, do I have the stamina to satisfy her? Is my dick going to be big enough? I don't know what positions she likes. Does she like being eaten out? Does she like a lot of foreplay? Does she like to get straight to the peen vagine action? Does she want to fellate me? You know what I mean? Is she good at fellation? Yeah, am I good at eating the coochie? I know with, my last girl, I was good, so maybe I'm good. There's a lot that goes through, because we as men understand that A girl will instantly leave if the sex is bad. We get one shot, we get one opportunity, and it's your chance to show, man. It really is, man. We out here like Eminem and 8 Mile, man. You know, one shot, one opportunity. That's all we get. And if we fuck that one shot up in that one opportunity, majority of the time you ain't getting a second try. And for me, I try to go into it like that's all I'm getting is one shot. So I'm gonna fucking show out. I'm gonna fuck the absolute shit out of this girl, and that's how I deal with it. You know, some guys don't really have that mental fortitude to kind of push through and, you know, be with a girl. Because for me, I look at it like I don't know you sexually, so I'm gonna try everything. I'm gonna do it all, and then, you know, if I do it all, then that means we could just start crossing shit out. Like, okay, she didn't like that. Okay, cool, she didn't like that. Okay, she didn't like that. She liked those things. Okay, she didn't like that. You know what I mean? And then when I, you know, come up to the next, because I tried everything and the sex kind of lasted a while and, you know, it was good and this and that, to some degree anyway, you know, it's like once I get to the second, I'm like, cool, I got the playbook, coach. We ready to go. You know? So it's just one of those things where it's like you got to understand, well, for dudes, we're thinking about a lot of shit, especially when it comes to sex, especially when it comes to that. So if it's not that good the first time, give them some pointers and give them a second shot. Okay, ladies, just do that. Just do that. All right. And I guarantee you might come out on the other end with a good sexual partner. Okay, guys, what's the hardest thing to explain to women? No, we don't need more firewood, but I like chopping things. I can hang out with my friends for hours and get an update on their love life. They didn't offer the information, and I frankly don't care. Okay. I mean, just loving to chop shit, sure. I don't. I mean, I think that's a country boy thing, if I'm being honest with you. The hanging out with the friends and not really getting an update on their love life and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, because a lot of back when I was with my ex, there would be a lot of times where I would hang out with my friend, and, you know, me and him, we would kick it, have a good time. You know, we're not really talking too much about things. Because we're just focusing on having a good time and shooting the shit. And then my girl will ask me, or my ex at that time, she would ask me, you know, oh, so how is him in so-and-so? And I was just like, oh, I don't know. I didn't ask. He's like, why didn't you ask? Oh, it just didn't come up. Okay, well, what did you guys talk about? Nothing really. We just talked about stupid shit, you know? And they're just like, you didn't ask him about it? Like, no, I didn't. We didn't talk about it. You know, and they're like, did you guys catch up? Yeah, we caught up big time. Okay, then why didn't you ask him these questions? Is that not catching up? Kinda. Like, for dudes, we don't really be having these heart-to-hearts all the time and talking about our love lives and shit like that. Like, we just don't really do all that shit too much. You know, for a dude, an average conversation is just, yo, you ready to go to the bar? Ready to go to the bar. Let's do it. And you know what I mean? And then we're just drinking. And we'll mainly be talking about what's on TV. You know, if there's a girl that walks by and she's got a butt, it's like, hey, check out that booty. You know what I mean? Like, and then we're just going to be talking about dumb, arbitrary shit like, you know, either like a car or, you know what I mean, whatever you're into. If you're into trucks, if you're into bikes, if you're into stuff like that, we'll just kind of talk about vehicles and inanimate shit. And, you know, like, we just don't really talk. We don't gossip like girls do. You know, we just don't do that shit. Sorry. It's just what we don't do. All right. After chatting with one of my friends for 10 minutes on the phone, we really were talking only about his car. See what I mean? No, I don't know if his girlfriend is in town. No, I don't know if his mom is fine or if she is alive. I have no idea his job is good or bad. No, I didn't ask that. Why the fuck would I ask that? I only know a little more about his car, and that's really it. Yeah, we just went over this. That is pretty much quintessentially what dudes talk about. We don't, you know what I mean? We don't talk about, like, much. We just don't. All right. That I am not responsible for what I do in your dreams. That is not actually me. Why are you so mad at me? Yo, facts. I don't understand. at the same time, I kind of do, because look, I think women believe in manifestation so much to where they think that their dreams are some manifestation of like this is what's going to happen in the future. And honestly, bro, that shit is absolutely dangerous. And I can already see some of the girls in my comments, oh, but I had a dream that my boyfriend cheated on me and then he cheated on me, so that's not true. I can see the comments now. I can see you talking to yourself in your car right now, and you're saying that shit. And look, if I'm being honest with you, there are sometimes, sure, when that happens, and you may be like, I knew it, sure. But not every single fucking time am I going to do something in a dream and then actually do it in real life. You know what I mean? Like, come on now. I acknowledge it, sure. It will happen every once in a blue moon kind of thing. But if I'm being honest with you, and then a lot of people sometimes say that, oh, I'm having those dreams because, there are like signs that I'll see, that he could possibly be doing that, but then my dream kind of confirms it or whatever. I don't know. Women will come up with anything to kind of rationalize it. But there's a lot of dudes who are just good dudes, and this whole dream thing be fucking them up. For me, I just agree with them. You know what I mean? Whenever, the girl I'm dating is just like, you cheated on me in my dream. And I was like, damn right I did. Like, bro, what do you say to that? I'm not about to try to sit here and make you feel better and all that. Nah, bro. If I did that in your dream, damn right I did. Yep, I did. You know what I mean? Like, I don't give a fuck, bro. Like, that's just so stupid. It's so childish. Like, what's the point? You know what I mean? Ay. All right, guys, what's the hardest thing to explain to women? No, I don't know how to fix everything. I just have an inherent understanding of how things physically interact, and my monkey brain is good at workarounds. I'm no genius. I was just left alone as a kid a lot. Facts. Because I'm the same way. Anytime I'm in a relationship, a lot of times I'm always the one kind of fixing shit. But a lot of times it's like, it's very simple things, and I'm the curious type where I like to take things apart and figure out how things work and, how things connect and work together and stuff. And then there's YouTube. I mean, let's be honest, man. There's so many times where I fix shit just off of YouTube. Like my friend one time, her brakes went out on her car, you know what I mean? And she was going to take it to some mechanic shop, and they were going to charge her like $560 or whatever. And I was just like, no, we're going to buy the brake pads for $40. And I'm just about to fucking do it myself. Like, this is not hard. You know what I mean? Fucking YouTube video later, done. She had brand new brakes. It wasn't that hard. Did it frustrate me every once in a while? Sure. Did it take longer than expected? Yes. But at the same time, it's like, bro, we have this beautiful, beautiful thing called YouTube, man. YouTube is the most wonderful thing ever. You can put anything in that motherfucker and you can find it. I'm being dead serious. You can put anything in that motherfucker and you can find it. And you can find it for the exact make and model of your car, or the exact make and model for the TV or the water heater or whatever you're working on. You can find it. It's there. It's on YouTube. There's so many times I've done shit like that. I remember the old house that I used to live in with my ex, our water heater broke. And, dude wanted to charge me $1,200 to fix that. I was like, fuck you. I went to Home Depot. I bought a water heater for $600. They shipped it to us. Got on the tubes, changed that bitch out. And don't get me wrong, it took like 4 or 5 hours. I ain't gonna sit here and was like, yeah, I was a handyman, up in that bitch, but I got it done. And I saved myself $600. Like, dude, the fuck out of here, man. I'm just saying. YouTube, brother. YouTube. YouTube makes you look great in front of your girl, man. I'm telling you. YouTube makes you look great. All right. Guys, what's the hardest thing to explain to women? Sometimes an erection just happens. We don't control the thing. It's a physical response that could literally be from nothing. Ayo, yeah. Yeah. I mean, and on top of that, I would argue some dudes are in a situation where they are, I don't want to say so lonely, but it's a thing where they haven't been like touched by a girl in a really long time. And so since they haven't been touched by a girl in a really long time, they tend to, the moment they do get to touch a girl, it's like, boop, And so, yeah. That happens too. And I would argue, like I said, a lot of guys don't really get that physical interaction with women that often. So when they do get that physical interaction with a woman, it's like, oh shit, you know what I mean? And especially if they find her attractive, all that good stuff too. So yeah. All right. Oh shit. Ugh. Wake that up. All right. It's waking up. All right. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna do 2 more. Guys, what's the hardest thing to explain to women? Just ask me the question you want the answer to, not the question that should lead me to know the question you want the answer to. Just ask me the question you want the answer to, not the question that should lead me. I don't know if I probably have dealt with that, but I don't know if I've dealt with that. That's confusing. You have to let me know in the comments an example of something like that, because I don't know. I'm sure I've dealt with it. I'm sure I've gone through it, but I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Guys, what's the hardest thing to explain to a woman? Having a guy open up to you about his deepest thoughts means you're in his inner circle. Don't break his trust under any circumstances. Facts. A lot of girls kind of look at that as like a guy being too open, and and I understand, they're like, oh, I want a guy to be vulnerable and stuff like that. But a lot of times when you are like that, girls do kind of are like, they in the moment, they're probably like, oh, it's really sweet. But then when they look back on it, they're like, So I don't know. Hey, not all women are like that though. Most kind of enjoy that. And I give it that, and that's cool. But there are times when that could backfire on you, you know what I mean? But if a dude is confiding in you like that, it's either one of 2 things. He must really like you and really want you to kind of understand what he's got going on in here in the old corazon, or it's a thing where he really trusts you and he understands like you're not going to be telling people and all that kind of stuff. And he probably likes you too. Let's be honest here. Let's just keep it under OP. But okay, that's going to go ahead and end that thread, man, right there. Hope you guys enjoyed that thread. Guys, down in the comments, if you have some stuff that maybe wasn't mentioned that is hard to explain to women, get on in there. Ladies, if you want to chime in and you want to throw it the other way and be like, hey, guys, these are things that are this is what's hard to explain to guys. Put that on down there. I'm down. You know what I mean? I'm down to do that. Get down in the comments though. Get active. I'm gonna shoot through announcements so we can get into the final chapters of A Court of Thorns and Roses. Patreon.com/MyLastPodcast. Get that exclusive episode every single Friday, as well as being able to send in your scenarios to be featured on Tuesday and Sunday shows. Get on in there. It's $3 a month. Get you that exclusive stuff, baby. Get on in there. I want to build a community over there. And, I need you guys' help to do that. All right. And audio listeners, if you're listening out there, please rate us 5 stars, as well as downloading the show, man. Downloading the show lets me know that you guys come back every single week and you're enjoying what we got going on over here. And if you haven't rated us on 5 stars, please do. It does help bring in new people, and it does help build the community over here. And guess what? It's for free and helps out a lot. If you want to help out even more on the free 99 side of things, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, as well as YouTube, okay? And so for next week, you guys are going to have to, if you haven't already, I have a playlist for Spotify and YouTube, okay? Spotify and YouTube, there's a playlist for the entire book 1 of Haunting Adeline in there, all right? So what I want you guys to do is watch all 40-something of those, it's 20 episodes. It's 42 chapters, but it's 20 episodes because we do 2 chapters an episode, okay? So check out all those episodes. I think it's like 20-something episodes. For Spotify, it's an entire playlist. I want to say it's an entire playlist for YouTube as well. It should be. If it isn't, I'll go in and make sure it's a playlist. It should be though. I think it is. But yeah, get in there, catch up on Adeline and Zayd, where they at, what they've been doing. Get ready on the story, because next week we are gonna be doing book 2. All right, so get ready for that. Check out all those episodes. They're all in the links. The playlists are in the links in the description. So go on there, click that, check it out. Okay. And then let's see. Oh yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Okay. Let's see.
Chapter 45. I was far away, but still seeing through eyes that weren't mine, eyes attached to a person who slowly rose from his position on a cracked, bloodied floor. Amarantha's face slackened. There my body was, prostrate on the ground, my head snapped to one side at a horribly wrong angle. A flash of red hair in the crowd. Lucian. Tears shone in Lucian's remaining eye as he raised his hands and removed the fox mask. The brutally scarred face beneath was still handsome, his features sharp and elegant. But my host was looking at Tamlin now, who slowly faced my dead body. Tamlin's still masked face twisted into something truly lupine as he raised his eyes to the queen and snarled. Fangs lengthened. Amarantha backed away from my corpse. She only whispered, "Please," before golden light exploded. The queen was blasted back, thrown against the far wall, and Tamlin let out a roar that shook the mountain as he launched himself at her. He shifted into his beast form faster than I could see, fur and claws and pound upon pound of lethal muscle. She had no sooner hit the wall than he gripped her by the neck, and the stones cracked as he shoved her against it with a clawed paw. She thrashed, but could do nothing against the brutal onslaught of Tamlin's beast. Blood ran down his furred arm from where she scratched. The Atter and the guards rushed for the queen, but several fairies and high fae, their masks clattering to the ground, jumped into their path, tackling them. Amarantha screeched, kicking at Tamlin, lashing at him with her dark magic, but a wall of gold encompassed his fur like a second skin. She couldn't touch him. "Tam!" Lucian cried over the chaos. A sword hurtled through the air, a shooting star of steel. Tamlin caught it in a massive paw. Amarantha's scream was cut short as he drove the sword through her head and into the stone beneath. And then closed his powerful jaws around her throat and ripped it out. Silence fell. It wasn't until I was again staring down at my own broken body that I realized whose eyes I'd been seeing through. But Rhysand didn't come any closer to my corpse, not as rushing paws, then a flash of light, then footsteps filled the air. The beast was already gone. Amarantha's blood had vanished from his face, his tunic, as Tamlin slammed to his knees. He scooped up my limp, broken body, cradling me to his chest. He hadn't removed his mask, but I saw the tears that fell onto my filthy tunic, and I heard the shuddering sobs that broke from him as he rocked me, stroking my hair. "No," someone breathed. Lucian, his sword dangling from his hand. Indeed, there were many high fae and fairies who watched with damp eyes as Tamlin held me. I wanted to get to Tamlin. I wanted to touch him, to beg for his forgiveness for what I'd done, for the other bodies on the floor, but I was so far away. someone appeared beside Lucian, a tall, handsome, brown-haired man with a face similar to his own. Lucian didn't look at his father, though he stiffened as the High Lord of the Autumn Court approached Tamlin and extended a clenched hand to him. Tamlin glanced up only when the High Lord opened his fingers and tipped over his hand. A glittering spark fell upon me. It flared and vanished as it touched my chest. 2 more figures approached, both handsome and young. Through my host's eyes, I knew them instantly. The brown-skinned one on the left wore a tunic of blue and green, and atop his white blonde head was a garland of roses. The High Lord of the Summer Court. His pale-skinned companion, clad in colors of white and gray, possessed a crown of shimmering ice. The High Lord of the Winter Court. Chins raised, shoulders back, they too dropped those glittering kernels upon me, and Tamlin bowed his head in gratitude. Another High Lord approached, also bestowing upon me a drop of light. He glowed brightest of them all, and from his gold and ruby raiment, I knew him to be the High Lord of the Dawn Court. Then the High Lord of the Day Court, clad in white and gold, his dark skin gleaming with an inner light, presented his similar gift, and smiled sadly at Tamlin before he walked away. Rhysand stepped forward, bringing my shred of soul with him, and I found Tamlin staring at me, at us.
"For what she gave," Rhysand said, extending a hand, "we will bestow what our predecessors have granted to few before."
He paused.
"This makes us even," he added,
and I felt the twinkle of his humor as he opened his hand and let the seed of light fall on me. Tamlin tenderly brushed aside my matted hair. His hand glowed bright as the rising sun, and in the center of his palm that strange shining bud formed.
"I love you," he whispered, and kissed me as he laid his hand on my heart.
Chapter 46. Everything was black and warm and thick, inky, but bordered with gold. I was swimming, kicking for the surface where Tamlin was waiting, where life was waiting. Up and up, frantic for air. The golden light grew, and the darkness became like sparkling wine, easier to swim through, the bubbles fizzing around me, and I gasped, air flooding my throat. I was lying on the cold floor. No pain, no blood, no broken bones. I blinked. A chandelier dangled above me. I'd never noticed how intricate the crystals were, how the hushed gasp of the crowd echoed off them. A crowd, meaning I was still in that throne room, meaning I truly wasn't dead, meaning I had killed those. The room spun. I groaned as I braced my hands against the floor, readying myself to stand, but the sight of my skin stopped me cold. It gleamed with a strange light, and my fingers seemed longer where I'd laid them flat on the marble. I pushed to my feet. I felt strong and fast and sleek, and I'd become High Fae. I went rigid as I sensed Tamlin standing behind me, smelled that rain and spring meadow scent of him, richer than I'd ever noticed. I couldn't turn around to look at him. I couldn't move. A High Fae, immortal. What had they done? I could hear Tamlin holding his breath, hear as he loosed it, hear the breathing, the whispering and weeping and quiet celebrating of everyone in that hall, still watching us, watching me, some chanting praise for the glorious power of their high lords.
"It was the only way we could save you,"
Tamlin said softly. But then I looked to the wall, and my hand rose to my throat. I forgot about the stunned crowd entirely. There, beneath Claire's decayed body, was Amarantha, her mouth gaping as the sword protruded from her brow, her throat gone, and blood now soaked the front of her gown. Amarantha was dead. They were free. I was free. Tamlin was... Amarantha was dead. And I had killed those two high fae. I shook my head slowly. "Are you..." My voice sounded too loud in my ears as I pushed back against that wall of black that threatened to swallow me. Amarantha was dead.
"See for yourself,"
he said. I kept my eyes on the ground as I turned. There, on the red marble, lay a golden mask, staring at me with its hollow eye holes.
"Feyre,"
Tamlin said, and he cupped my chin between his fingers, gently lifting my face. I saw that familiar chin first, then the mouth, and then... He was exactly how I dreamed he would be. He smiled at me, his entire face alight with that quiet joy I had come to love so dearly, and he brushed my hair aside. I savored the feel of his fingers on my skin and raised my own to touch his face, to trace the contours of those high cheekbones and that lovely straight nose, the clear, broad brow, the slightly arching eyebrows that framed his green eyes. What I had done to get to this moment, to be standing here. I shoved against the thought again. In a minute, in an hour, in a day, I would think about that, force myself to face it. I put a hand on Tamlin's heart, and a steady beat echoed into my bones. I sat on the edge of a bed, and while I'd thought being an immortal meant a higher pain threshold and faster healing, I winced a good deal as Tamlin inspected my few remaining wounds, then healed them. We'd scarcely had a moment alone together in the hours that followed Amarantha's death, that followed what I had done to those two fairies. But now, in this quiet room, I couldn't look away from the truth that sounded in my head with each breath. I'd killed them, slaughtered them. I hadn't even seen their bodies being taken away. For it had been chaos in the throne room in the moments after I'd awakened. The Adder and the nastier fairies had disappeared instantly, along with Lucian's brothers, which was a clever move, as Lucian wasn't the only fairy with a score to settle. No sign of Rhysand either. Some fairies had fled, while others had burst into celebration, and others just stood or paced, eyes distant, faces pale, as if they too didn't quite feel like this was real. One by one, crowding him, weeping and laughing with joy, the high fae and fairies of the spring court knelt or embraced or kissed Tamlin, thanking him, thanking me. I kept far back enough that I would only nod, because I had no words to offer them in exchange for their gratitude, the gratitude for the fairies I'd butchered to save them. Then there had been meetings in the frenzied throne room, quick, tense meetings with the high lords Tamlin was allied with to sort out next steps. Then with Lucian and some spring court high fae who introduced themselves as Tamlin's sentries. But every word, every breath was too loud, every smell too strong, the light too bright. Keeping still throughout it all was easier than moving, than adjusting to the strange, strong body that was now mine. I couldn't even touch my hair without the slight difference in my fingers jarring me. on, until every newly heightened sense was chafing and raw, and Tamlin at last noticed my dull eyes, my silence, and took my arm. He escorted me through the labyrinth of tunnels and hallways until we found a quiet bedroom in a distant wing of the court. "Feyre," Tamlin said now, looking up from inspecting my bare leg. I had been so accustomed to his mask that the handsome face surprised me each time I beheld it. This was what I had murdered those fairies for. Their deaths had not been in vain, and yet the blood on me had been gone when I'd awoken, as if being an immortal, as if surviving somehow earned me the right to wash their blood off me. "What is it?" I said. My voice was quiet, hollow. I should try to sound more cheerful for him, for what had just happened, but he gave me that half smile. Had he been human, he might have been in his late 20s, but he wasn't human, and neither was I. I wasn't certain whether that was a happy thought or not. It was one of my smallest concerns. I should be begging for his forgiveness, begging the families and friends of those fairies for their forgiveness. I should be on my knees, weeping with shame for all that I had done. "Feyre," he said again, lowering my leg to stand between my knees. He caressed my cheek with a knuckle. "How can I ever repay you for what you did?" "You don't need to," I said. Let that be that. Let that dark, dank cell fade away, and Amarantha's face forever disappear from my memory. Even if those two dead fairies, even if their faces would never fade for me, if I could ever bring myself to paint again, I would never be able to stop seeing those faces instead of the colors and light. Tamlin held my face in his hands, leaning close, but then released me and grasped my left arm, my tattooed arm. His brows narrowed as he studied the markings. "Feyre." "I don't want to talk about it," I mumbled. The bargain I had with Rhysand, another small concern compared to the stain on my soul, the pit inside it. But I didn't doubt I'd see Rhys again soon. Tamlin's fingers traced the marks of my tattoo. "We'll find a way out of this," he murmured, and his hand traveled up my arm to rest on my shoulder. He opened his mouth, and I knew what he would say, the subject he would try to broach. I couldn't talk about it, about them, not yet. So I breathed, "Later," and hooked my feet around his legs, drawing him closer. I placed my hands on his chest, feeling the heart beating beneath. I needed this right now. It wouldn't wash away what I'd done, but I needed him near, needed to smell and taste him, remind myself that he was real. This was real. "Later," he echoed, and leaned down to kiss me. It was soft, tentative, nothing like the wild, hard kisses we'd shared in the hall of the throne room. He brushed his lips against mine again. I didn't want apologies, didn't want sympathy or coddling. I gripped the front of his tunic, tugging him closer as I opened my mouth to him. He let out a low growl, and the sound of it sent a wildfire blazing through me, pooling and burning in my core. I let it burn through that hole in my chest, my soul. Let it raise through the wave of black that was starting to press around me. Let it consume the phantom blood I could still feel on my hands. I gave myself to that fire, to him, as his hands roved across me, unbuttoning as he went. I pulled back, breaking the kiss to look into his face. His eyes were bright, hungry, but his hands had stopped their exploring and rested firmly on my hips, With a predator's stillness, he waited and watched as I traced the contours of his face, as I kissed every place I touched. His ragged breathing was the only sound, and his hands soon began roaming across my back and sides, caressing and teasing and bearing me to him. When my traveling fingers reached his mouth, he bit down on one, sucking it into his mouth. It didn't hurt, but the bite was hard enough for me to meet his eyes again, to realize that he was done waiting, and so was I. He eased me onto the bed, murmuring my name against my neck, the shell of my ear, the tips of my fingers. I urged him faster, harder. His mouth explored a curve of my breast, the inside of my thigh. A kiss for each day we'd spent apart. A kiss for every wound and terror. A kiss for the ink etched into my flesh, and for all the days we would be together after this. Days, perhaps, that I no longer deserved. But I gave myself again to that fire, threw myself into it, into him, and let myself burn. I was pulled from sleep by something tugging at my middle, a thread deep inside. I left Tamlin sleeping in the bed, his body heavy with exhaustion. In a few hours, we would be leaving under the mountain and returning home, and I didn't want to wake him sooner than I had to. I prayed I would ever get to sleep that peacefully again. I knew who summoned me long before I opened the door to the hall and padded down it, stumbling and teetering every now and then as I adjusted to my new body, its new balance and rhythms. I carefully, slowly took a narrow set of stairs upward, up and up, until, to my shock, a trickle of sunlight poured into the stairwell, and I found myself on a small balcony jutting out of the side of the mountain. I hissed against the brightness, shielding my eyes. I'd thought it was the middle of the night. I'd completely lost all sense of time in the darkness of the mountain. Rhysand chuckled softly from where I could vaguely make him out standing along the stone rail. I forgot that it's been a while for you. My eyes stung from the light, and I remained silent until I could look at the view without shooting pain going through my head. A land of violet snow-capped mountains greeted me, but the rock of this mountain was brown and bare. Not even a blade of grass or a crystal of ice gleamed on it. I looked at him finally. His membranous wings were out, tucked behind him, but his hands and feet were normal, no talons in sight. What do you want? It didn't come out with the snap I'd intended, not as I remembered how he'd fought again and again to attack Amarantha, to save me. Just to say goodbye. A warm breeze ruffled his hair, brushing tendrils of darkness off his shoulders. Before your beloved whisks you away forever. Not forever, I said, wiggling my tattooed fingers for him to see. Don't you get a week every month? Those words, thankfully, came out frosty. Rhys smiled slightly, his wings rustling and then settling. How could I forget? I stared at the nose I'd seen bleeding only hours before, the violet eyes that had been so filled with pain. Why? I asked. He knew what I meant and shrugged. Because when the legends get written, I didn't want to be remembered for standing on the sidelines. I want my future offspring to know that I was there and that I fought against her at the end, even if I couldn't do anything useful. I blinked, this time not at the brightness of the sun. Because, he went on, his eyes locked with mine, I didn't want you to fight alone, or die alone. and for a moment I remembered that fairy who had died in our foyer and how I'd told Tamlin the same thing. "Thank you," I said, my throat tight. Rhys flashed a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes.
"I doubt you'll be saying that when I take you to the night court."
I didn't bother to reply as I turned toward the view. The mountains went on, gleaming and shadowed and vast under the open, clear sky. But nothing in me stirred. Nothing catalogued the light and colors. "Are you going to fly home?" I said. A soft laugh.
"Unfortunately, it would take longer than I can afford. Another day I'll taste the skies again."
I glanced at the wings tucked into his powerful body, and my voice was hoarse as I spoke. "You never told me you loved the wings or the flying." No, he'd made his shape-shifting seem base, useless, boring. He shrugged.
"Everything I love always had a tendency to be taken from me. I tell very few about the wings or the flying."
Some color had already come into that moon-white face, and I wondered whether he might once have been tan before Amarantha had kept him below ground for so long. A high lord who loved to fly, trapped under a mountain. Shadows not of his own making still haunted those violet eyes. I wondered if they would ever fade.
"How does it feel to be a high fae?" he asked.
A quiet, curious question. I looked out toward the mountains again, considering. And maybe it was because there was no one else to hear. Maybe it was because the shadows in his eyes would also forever be in mine. But I said, "I'm an immortal who has been mortal. This body..." I looked down at my hand, so clean and shining, a mockery of what I'd done. "This body is different, but this..." I put my hand on my chest, my heart. "This is still human. Maybe it always will be. But it would have been easier to live with it."
My throat welled.
Easier to live with what I did if my heart had changed too. Maybe I wouldn't care so much. Maybe I could convince myself their deaths weren't in vain. Maybe immortality will take that away. I can't tell whether I want it to.
Rhysand stared at me for long enough that I faced him. "Be glad of your human heart, Feyre. Pity those who don't feel anything at all."
I couldn't explain about the hole that had already formed in my soul. Didn't want to, so I just nodded.
"Well, goodbye for now," he said, rolling his neck as if we hadn't been talking about anything important at all.
He bowed at the waist, those wings vanishing entirely, and had begun to fade into the nearest shadow when he went rigid. His eyes locked on mine, wide and wild, and his nostrils flared. Shock. Pure shock flashed across his features at whatever he saw on my face, and he stumbled back a step. Actually stumbled. "What is..." I began. He disappeared. Simply disappeared, not a shadow in sight, into the crisp air. Tamlin and I left the way I'd come in, through that narrow cave in the belly of the mountain. Before departing, the high fae of several courts destroyed and then sealed Amarantha's court under the mountain. We were the last to leave, and with a wave of Tamlin's arm, the entrance to the court crumbled behind us. I still didn't have the words to ask what they'd done with those two fairies. Maybe someday, maybe soon, I would ask who they were, what their names had been. Amarantha's body, I'd heard, had been hauled off to be burned, though Jurian's bone and eye were somehow missing. As much as I wanted to hate her, as much as I wished I could have spat on her burning body, I understood what had driven her. A very small part of her, but I understood it. Tamlin gripped my hand as we strode through the darkness. Neither of us said anything when a glimmer of sunlight appeared, staining the damp cave walls with a silvery sheen, but our steps quickened as the sunlight grew brighter and the cave warmer, and then both of us emerged onto the spring-green grass that covered the bumps and hollows of his lands. Our lands. The breeze, the scent of wildflowers hit me, and despite the hole in my chest, the stain on my soul, I couldn't stop the smile that spread as we mounted a steep hill. My fairy legs were far stronger than my human ones, and when we reached the top of the knoll, I wasn't nearly as winded as I might once have been. But the breath was knocked from my chest when I beheld the rose-covered manor. Home. In all my imaginings in Amarantha's dungeons, I'd never allowed myself to think of this moment. Never allowed myself to dream that outrageously. But I'd made it. I'd brought us both home. I squeezed his hand as we gazed down at the manor, with its stables and gardens, 2 sets of childish laughter, true, free laughter coming from somewhere inside its grounds. A moment later, 2 small, shining figures darted into the field beyond the garden, shrieking as they were chased by a taller, chuckling figure. Alice and her boys, safe and out of hiding at last. Tamlin slipped an arm around my shoulders, tucking me close to him as he rested his cheek on my head. My lips trembled, and I wrapped my arm around his waist. We stood atop the hill in silence until the setting sun gilded the house and the hills and the world, and Lucian called us to dinner. I stepped out of Tamlin's arms and kissed him softly. Tomorrow. There would be tomorrow and an eternity to face what I had done, to face what I shredded into pieces inside myself while under the mountain. But for now, for today, let's go home, I said, and took his hand. The end.
All right. And that's it. That has been A Court of Thorns and Roses. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this book, have enjoyed the journey that we gone through. Feyre definitely got the happy ending she was looking for. They ended up killing Amaranthia. She got the man. Goddamn. It was a good book. It was a very good book. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Again, next week, we are going to be doing Haunting Adeline Book 2. I don't know why that jumped out of my head. But, if you want to check out everything that happened with Book 1, again, I have the playlist down there. Get caught up, because next week, that's what we're doing. I love you guys all. I will see you on Friday if you're on Patreon, and Tuesday if you are if you're a free 99 person. But again, love you guys all. I'll see you, and peace.